Hello guys, welcome to continue our lesson which how to find the limit, or it is finding the limit of rational function. Before I showed you in the previous video how to find the limit of rational function using dividing out technique. Okay, but in this lesson I'll show you how to use the rationalizing technique to find the limit of rational function. Okay, in this case, I use this way. Before I show you this technique, I'd like to remind you by the conjugate of expression. Is this expression, or sorry, does this expression represent polynomial? I know most of you will tell me no, because we have a variable under the root. In this case, this is not a polynomial. Okay, I'd like to show you how to find the conjugate of each expression. The conjugate of this expression, it will be, look here, the same expression, but I change the sign between the radical and the number. Plus 1, I keep the first, that is the first term for me, that is the second one, plus 2. That is the meaning of conjugate. I just write root here, that is the first term for me, that is the second one. In this case, I write the same, I keep both of these terms as they are, and change the sign between them. Here, that is the first one, that is the second one. Okay, what is the conjugate? Just to change the sign between the two terms. 3, instead of, it will be minus, keep it as it is. That is the meaning of the conjugate of any expression, which does not represent polynomial, as you see here, this one. I'd like also to remind you, find the product of each of the following. How to find the product of any expression and its conjugate. In this case, it looks like what? The factorization of difference between two squares. The first term as the first term, second term as the second term, but the first one has minus, the second one has plus. In this case, it will be what? What is the product of any expression and its conjugate? Squaring the first one, I'll show you. Okay? Minus squaring the second one. Understand or no? Squaring of the first one, squaring of the second one. As you know, the squaring cancels the root, so it will be x plus minus 2 squared, it means what? 4. So it will be x minus 3. That is the product of this expression by its conjugate. Here, by the same way, it looks like the difference between two squares. It means the squared value here minus the squared value here. I think it's so clear. Squaring the first term minus squaring the second term, which is square root x. It will be 9, and the square cancels the root. It will be minus x. Okay? I hope you understand what is the meaning of the conjugate of any expression and what is the product of any expression by its conjugate. Okay? Here, I want from each one of you to remember what is the meaning of the conjugate. When we find the limit of rational function using rationalizing technique. When we use the rationalizing technique, if any one of the numerator, denominator, or both of them, they are not polynomial. The numerator polynomial or not polynomial. Since we have variable under the root, as you see, in this case, this expression doesn't represent polynomial. Okay? So, in this case, we use rationalizing technique. I use rationalizing technique if we have variable under the root, or we have variable in denominator such that the numerator or the denominator doesn't represent polynomial. In this case, I use the conjugate. What is the first step? Use the conjugate to redefine. I need to redefine the function. But before I do any steps, as I showed you before, the first step, please, what is the first step? As I told you before, substitute. To make sure the value of this limit undetermined. Here, replace, it will be a square root 1, square root 2, minus square root 2, over 0. It will be 0 over 0, undetermined. Okay, undetermined. In this case, the limit exists, but I need to redefine the function. In this case, we use dividing out technique? No, because both numerator and denominator are not polynomial. In this case, I use the second technique, which is rationalizing, by multiplying both numerator and denominator by the conjugate of what? Of the expression which doesn't represent polynomial. Okay, I multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the expression in which we have variable in denominator. Which one here? Which is here? The numerator. I will use square root x plus 2 minus square root 2 to redefine. I need to redefine the function. Okay, over x. Multiply both numerator and denominator by what? The conjugate of the expression which has what? That is the expression in the numerator. It will be, what is the conjugate? I write the first term as it is, which is under the root. In a state of minus, I will write here plus square root 2. I keep the terms as they are and change the sign between them. As we multiply the numerator, we multiply the denominator to keep the function without any change. Okay? To redefine. That is the redefine. The first step, substitute. The second one, redefines the function using rationalizing technique. What is the product of this one? As I told you, the product of any expression and it's rationalized, it will be the squaring of the first term, the square of this one. It will cancel the root. It will be x plus 2. Squaring any square root, take what under the root? The squaring of any root of any value, okay, give you what under the root? Minus, okay, the square of a square root x, please focus, the square root 2, it will be what? Squaring this one, it will give you what under the root? Squaring any root, give you what under the root? Sorry, the squaring root. Again, squaring the square root of any value, give you the value under the root. Here, by multiplying this one, it will be x. No, it will be this one, multiply this expression. I keep it as it is, but keep it add a factor like this one. Don't distribute. Square root what? 2. That is what? 2. That is arc. Okay? Simplify as we know. Negative 2 with 2. So the numerator will be x over x multiply this factor square root x plus 2 plus square root 2. Clear or not clear? Then simplify. I simplify the numerator and the denominator. Okay? But don't forget to cancel the common factor between numerator and denominator. To cancel the factor which makes the denominator 0. Here x in denominator give you 0. But it appear in numerator and denominator. I will cancel this one as you see here. It will be what? Divide x1, divide x here 1. Don't say 0. It will be 1 over x squared plus 2, sorry, x square what? What is the square of this one? The square root of x plus 2, okay, I'm sorry, plus square root what? 2. Okay, square root 2. That is the redefining function. 1 over square root x plus 2 plus square root 2. Okay, it is the what? The redefining of the given function. So limit the given function square root x plus 2 minus square root 2 over x when x approaches 0. This limit of this function, it will be the limit of its what? Conjugate, redefining function. X plus root 2, square root x plus what? 2 plus root 2. When x approaches what? 0, then replace. As I told you, I need to, the first step, substitute. If you get 0 over 0, I need to redefine the function. Since we have a square root of any variable, in this case we use the rationalizing technique. Okay, as you see here. After we to redefine the function, that is the redefining function. The limit of the given function is what? The limit of its what? Redefining function. The last step, replace in the redefining function to find the limit of the given function. I hope you understand this. Okay, replace in the redefining function to find the limit of the given function as we did before by using dividing out technique. Here we redefine, as I told you before, if the value of the function after we substitute in it give you 0 over 0 undetermined value, in this case we need, the limit exists but we need to redefine the function. In this case, I redefine the function using what? Rationalizing technique, since the expression of any one of the numerator or denominator or any one of them is what? Not polynomial. We use the conjugate to redefine the function, then after we redefine the function, substitute in it. Okay, let's see the second question here. Miss, which technique I use? Dividing out technique as we learned before in the previous session, or we use the rationalizing technique. Since the numerator is not a polynomial, is not what? Is not a polynomial. Okay, is not a polynomial, I use rationalizing technique. What is the first step? I have to use what? The 3 steps. Substitute by the given function, by the given value of x in the given function in numerator and denominator. 4 minus 16 root 16, square root of 16, x minus 16. In numerator it will be 0, in denominator it will be 0. So limit exists but we need to redefine. We use what? Rationalizing technique, which is in which we multiply both numerator and denominator by what? The conjugate of the expression which is not polynomial, which is here numerator. Multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate. 4 here plus in a state of minus, that I just change the sign between these two terms. Okay, over x, 4 plus square root x. I have to multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate. The product of any expression and its conjugate, you have to remember it. It will be what? Squaring the first, which is 16, squaring the second, squaring any square root, cancel the root, minus x, over x minus 16, but keep it between two brackets. I keep this factor, this factor. Okay, and here it will be 4 plus square root x. Here means the numerator is 16 minus x, but in the denominator x minus 16 is the opposite. Okay, here positive, here negative, here negative, here positive. It means the value in the numerator is the opposite in denominator. Here, if you divide negative 3 by 3, it will give you what? Negative 1. Okay, it will be what? Negative 1. Or by another way, It will be here this one, because they are opposite to each other. It will be -1 over 4 plus square root x. That is the redefining function. Some of you will not understand this one here. -3 over 3, it will be -1. -5 over 5, it will be -1. Here, miss, as you see, x here positive, here negative. 16 here positive and negative. It means that the denominator is the opposite of numerator. That is why if we cancel the numerator and denominator, and they have one of them, sorry, is the opposite of the other, it gives you -1. That is the redefining function. So limit of the given function, which is 4 minus square root x over x minus 16. When x approaches what? 16, it is the same as limit negative, the redefining function, okay? X, when x approaches 16, how we get the result? By replacing, because I cancel the factor which make in the denominator 0. Okay, replace, it will be -1 over here 4 plus square root, replace each x by 16, square root of 16, which will be -1 over 4 plus 4, it will be 8. You can use a calculator. That is the limit of the given function. Please, the first step, use what? Use the substitution. If you get 0 over 0, it means the limit exists, but we need to redefine the function. The type of the numerator, the function of numerator and denominator, tell me which technique I use. If both of them are polynomial, in this case I use dividing out technique, which factorize numerator and denominator, and so on, as I told you in the previous video. But here, if any one of the numerator or the denominator, the function in numerator or in the denominator, in the given rational function here, is not polynomial, as you see here, that is the numerator. How? Since we have a variable under the root, it is not polynomial. In this case, we use the conjugate of the function which doesn't represent polynomial or is not polynomial. Multiply both numerator by the conjugate, which means change only the sign between the given term. Find the product of any function and its conjugate, as you see, okay? But for the denominator or the other one, which here x minus 16 is not conjugate of what? 4 plus square root x. In this case, write them as a product, as you see here, okay? Until I find something in numerator and in denominator to cancel together, okay? To redefine the function as you see. Here, that is the last one, and the other's question, it will be homework, okay? Page 4, it will be what? Homework. Here, let's solve this one. Again, since the numerator here is not a polynomial, I use rationalizing technique. But before this one, before I decide which technique I use, how many steps? The first one, substitute, because maybe I'll get number. In this case, I don't need any one of these technique. Here, by replacing in the numerator, it will be what? Square root 3 plus 0, it will be 3 minus square root what? 3 over 0. Okay, it will be what? 0 over 0. In this case, undetermined, sorry. Okay, I need to rationalize since the numerator is not polynomial. How to rationalize here? By multiply the rational function by the conjugate of the expression which is not what? Polynomial. Here, which is in the numerator. I multiply both the numerator and denominator by the conjugate of this numerator. It will be what? Square root 3 plus x. Instead of minus, it will be plus square root 3 over what? Because I multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate. As I multiply numerator, I multiply the denominator. Okay? As I told you before, where is the conjugate? The product of any expression and its conjugate, I find only this product, which will be squaring the first, cancel the root, 3 plus x. Squaring the second, cancel what? The root. Over here, keep the other product without finding the product. Just write them as a factors. Product of two what? Factors. Here, sorry, plus square root 3. Okay? This simplify. You will get in the numerator what? I'll get in the numerator x. So the numerator became x. I cancel the new numerator by this numerator. It will be what? Here it will be 1. Cancel, it means 1. Don't say 0. Square root 3 plus x plus square root what? 3. That is the redefining function. Why will you multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate to get redefining what? Function. Then limit of the given function, which is what? Square root 3 plus x, okay, minus square root 3 over x, when x approaches what? 0, equal the limit of the redefining function. I redefine the function to cancel the factor which makes the denominator equal what? Square root 3 plus x plus square root 3. When x approaches what? 0. In this case, substitute again. I substitute at the beginning and at the end of the solution. It will be the numerator, it will be 1. 0, it will be square root 3 plus, it will be 2 square root what? 3. You can simplify by using calculator, but I multiply square root, it will be square root 3 over 6. By multiplying both numerator and denominator by square root of 3. Okay, thank you for joining the session. Page 4 will be homework. And please watch the video to understand what is the meaning of the conjugate when we use rationalizing technique, okay, to redefine the function. I substitute at the beginning in first step and substitute in the redefining function in the second and the third step. Rationalizing how we get by multiplying both numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the function the function of numerator or denominator, as we have which one is not polynomial. Okay, thank you, have a nice day, bye bye.